In this session, we are going to discuss about ecology. Ecology can be defined as the scientific study of the distribution and abundance of organisms and the interactions that determine distribution and abundance. So this definition encompasses not only the plants and animals that Haeckel recognized, but microscopic organisms such as bacteria, archaea, and protozoa as well. So the interactions that determine an organism's distribution and abundance are processes that include energy flow, growth, reproduction, predation, competition, and many others. So the term ecology, from where the term or how the term was coined, ecology. The term ecology was coined in 1866 by the German biologist Ernest Haeckel from the Greek word oikos meaning house or dwelling and logos meaning science or study. So that is the from where ecology term was coined. So an organism's environment may be distinguished into two, like abiotic component and biotic component. So, abiotic component of an environment are all of the non-living components of an organism's environment. So these might include things like temperature, light, water, wind, nutrients, substrates such as rock and soil, and periodic disturbances. Biotic components of an environment are all other organisms found in an environment with which an organism makes contact directly or indirectly. So these organisms may be competing for each other or preying upon, being preyed upon or providing shelter or in some other way impact on the environment. So actually the physical environment which is present for this for the organisms that can be built, that is might be created by the people, or it can be natural. So some physical environments encourage activity, others hinders a person's ability to be active. For some individuals, especially those with limited mobility, the physical environment can be full of obstacles that make it difficult to participate in physical activity. The next term we are going to study is behavioral ecology. Behavioral ecology or ethology is the study of the ecological and evolutionary basis for animal behavior and the roles of behavior in enabling an animal to adapt to its environment. The branch of ecology that focuses on the evolutionary causes of variation in behavior among populations and species, that is called as behavioral ecology. So thus it is concerned with the adaptiveness of behavior. The ultimate question is why animals behave as they do, or rather than approximate questions like how they behave, we can ask that why animals behave as they do. The principles of natural selection are applied to behavior with the underlying assumption that within that constraints of their evolutionary histories, animals behave optimally by maximizing their genetic contribution to future generations. For example, you can say animals must maintain their internal psychological condition, internal physiological conditions with certain limits in order to function properly, and often they do this by their behavior. So in such cases, it's important that we should be able to study the behavioral developments or behavioral what are the behavioral criteria that should follow. There are several ways animals avoid falling prey to their predator. So any adaptation the prey uses adds to the chances of survival for that species. So some adaptations are defense mechanisms which can give the prey an advantage against their enemies. So there are several ways that animals avoid falling prey to their predators. So one very such way, you can say that one way is like direct and it comes in a natural way. It's like a reflex action. So imagine that you are a rabbit and you have just noticed that a fox is trying to catch a rabbit. So the first thing the rabbit will do is run. That comes automatically. That is a natural way that rabbit tries to escape from the predation. So what would be the initial response that it does is that it runs. So animals can use speed as a very effective means of escaping predators. Many predators search for their prey with their eyes. Usually all the predators search with their eyes. So if as a result many prey species have evolved special body coloration to reduce their chances of being eaten. For example, many prey species blend in with their environment, making it difficult for the predators to find them. So these species use camouflage as the first line of defense. So another word for this mean for camouflaging of for this type of defense is as crypsis or cryptic coloration. So they merge with the environment so much with the color that the predators are unable to find them out and they can escape. Mimicking an animal is another is that is dangerous to predators. Another effective means of avoiding being eaten. So mimicry is the similarity of one species to another which protects one or both. This similarity can be in appearance, behavior, sound, scented, even location, with the mimics found in similar places to their models. So that is mimicking an individual is another cause of defense mechanism. Even some animals have some physical features that make them undesirable meal, like porcupines, because they have thorns on their body, it's unable for the predators to consume it. So that's one, and in same as porcupines, some one other cases of the of turtles. So because of their protective shell, the predators are unable to consume it. The next one is altruism. So, in evolutionary biology, an organism is said to behave altruistically when when its behavior benefits other organisms, or at a cost of itself, it benefits its behavioral benefit it other organisms. So, the cost and benefits are measured in terms of reproductive fitness or expected number of offspring. So, by behaving altruistically, an organism reduces the number of offspring it is likely to produce itself, but boosts the number of offsprings that other organisms are likely to produce. So, such act is called as altruism. Such type of behavior is called as altruism. Altruistic behavior is common throughout the animal kingdom, particularly in species with complex social structures. For example, vampire bats, they regularly regurgitate blood and donate it to other members of their group who have failed to feed that night because they save them from starving. So that is one type of altruistic behavior. Costing them, I mean, they are costing them to save, and they are benefiting others. Community ecology is one main branch, or it's a community is an or it can be called as a community in which an assemblage of two or more populations of different species occupy the same geographical area. So the term community has a variety of uses. In community ecologists, they study the interaction between species and communities on many spatial and temporal scales, including the distribution, structure, abundance, demography, and interaction between coexisting populations. So the primary focus of community ecology is on the interaction between populations as determined by specific genotypic and phenotypic characteristics. So according to the community ecologists, there might be a different interaction between populations. So there, for the common interactions which you see in the populations are one is the competition, predation, then parasitism, and mutualism. So in competition, or you can say the number of interacting species in these communities and the complexity of their relationship exemplify what is meant by the term biodiversity. That so structures arise within communities as species interact, and food chains, food web, and other interactive webs are created. Because of these interactions, food chains, food webs, everything, all are created. So these another the overall structure of the biological community and the organization of interspecific interaction and the effects the evolutionary process has in the biological community can be explained through these type of interactions. So one such interaction which is used is competition. Competition is an interaction between organisms or species in which the fitness of one is lowered by the presence of another. That there is limited supply at least for the same source. They compete for the same source, like for food, water, territory used by the both they require. So both of them compete for the same resources. So competition both within and between species is an important topic in ecology, especially community ecology. So competition is one of main interacting biotic and abiotic factors that affect community structure. Competition among members of the same species is known as intraspecific competition, while competition between individuals, different species is known as interspecific competition. So there are competition between both species, whether it is for the whether it is between the species or if it is within the same community of the species or with different species. They in both the competitions they compete for the resources, that is maybe the food, the shelter, whatever will be. They compete for the same, the same resources. According to the competitive expulsion principle, species less suited to compete for resources should either adapt or die out. So according to evolutionary theory, this competition within and between species for resources plays a critical role in natural selection. However, competition may play less of a role than expansion among larger groups such as families. So competitions, thus competitions can be divided into context-specific and intraspecific. In intraspecific competition that occurs mainly between members of the same species, they compete for the same resources in an ecosystem. So for example, like for two trees growing close together, they compete for the light and water nutrients in the soil. So therefore, getting less resource, they will usually perform less well than if they grow by themselves. So although in this situation, it may actually be more useful to think in terms of resource availability than competition. So adaptations to such an environment include either they have to grow taller, the growing taller trees will be getting more adapted to the environment, where the specific prediction provided by the competition model is that all species in such a situation will grow as tall as possible, or developing a large root system. They might develop a very deep root system to absorb the nutrients from the soil. So these are the either of the two options they'll have to follow to get adapted to the environment, or you can say this is another way of surviving or survival of the fittest. Interspecific competition. Interspecific competition, as we said before, is when individuals of two separate species share a limiting resource in the same area, is called as interspecific competition. So if the resource cannot support both populations, then lowered will mean they will go through lowered fecundity, growth, or survival may result in at least one species. Interspecific competition has the potential to alter populations, communities, and evolution of interacting species. So an example among animals would be the case of like hyenas and lions. They are two different species, but still they feed on the same. I mean the resource they use or they compete for is the same. Since both species feed on similar prey, they are negatively impacted by the presence of other because they will have less food. So, however, they still persist together despite the prediction that under competition one will displace the other. Even in the in even potential competition, even it can kill the other species. Next is predation. So, in predation, one organism kills and consumes another. Predation provides energy to prolong the life and promote the reproduction of the organism that does the killing. Predator to the detriment of the organism being consumed, that is the prey. So in the predation interaction, either one has to be killed, or either one consumes the other and the predator kills the prey. So predation influences organisms at two ecological levels. So the best known examples of the predation involve the carnivorous interactions in which one animal consumes another. So that is one, carnivorous example can be quoted as the predation classic example for predation. The next is parasitism. So parasitism is a type of non-mutual relationship. There is no mutual understanding between the organisms in this. So it's a type of non-mutual relationship between organisms of different species where one organism, that is the parasite, benefits at the expense of other, the host. So traditionally, parasite referred to organisms with life stages that needed more than one host. So classic example of parasitisms include the interaction between the vertebrates and diverse animals such as tapeworms, fluke, plasma species, etc. Parasites. There are two types of parasites. That is, parasites that live on the surface of hosts are called ectoparasites. That is from mites. And those parasites which inside of the inside the host are called endoparasites. Such as usually endoparasites are usually vectors. Mutualism. Mutualism is the way two organisms are benefited in this. So, mutualism is the way two organisms of different species biologically interact in a relationship in which each individual derives a fitness benefit. That is, that means increased or improved reproduction output. So, similar interactions within a species are known as cooperation. It can be also called as a cooperation. Both are benefited. You can call it as a cooperation relationship. A well-known example of mutualism in the relationship between ungulates, such as cows and bacteria, those bacteria which live in the intestine of the cows, is an example for mutualism. Mutualism can be contrasted with interspecific competition, in which each species experiences reduced fitness and exploitation or parasitism, in which one species benefits at the expense of other. So, these two are like these four types of interactions plays an important role in community ecology.